Hey everybody, it's Chris. Today we are going to be painting on something a little bit different, and we are going to be painting on these bamboo salt cellars. I purchased these off of Amazon. They come 2 to a pack and they're just $12. So they're a really inexpensive gift. They have a magnetic lid and they swivel, and inside you've got a cute little bamboo spoon, and then the salt goes in here. But they aren't the best thing to paint when they're all together. So I discovered that if I gently twist and pull on the lid, it comes right off. When I get done painting these, what I'll do is just put a little bit of glue, probably on the end right here, because this is the part that swivels. So we want to be sure that we don't get any glue down where it swivels. But once they're done, I'm just going to go ahead and put a little bit of glue on the end of this little hardware here, and then put it back down in there and let it dry. So I'm going to set this off to the side so I can show you how I've taped them. I've got one here that's partially taped up. This is what they look like once they're taped. And this is what it looks like kind of in the process. So I've got all the tape on here. I did take a little piece to put around the hardware just because I don't want any paint to get in there. And then once these are painted and dried, I do plan to resin these so that they'll hold up really nicely in the kitchen. So I wanted to make sure that this little piece was protected. I just used my scissors to go around the edge once I had it taped. And I'm just trying to cut as close as I possibly can to the edge of it. Once I get done with cutting it off, then I just go back and just make sure that I don't have any little corners sticking out or pieces that are extending out past the edge of it. I think it's really important that the edge is not does not have any tape showing, because I think that's where the paint will pool, or the resin, once we get to that stage. So I'm just going to closely trim this as best as I possibly can with my scissors, and then hold tight, and I'll pop back on and show you how we're going to paint these. Hey everybody, I thought we would do a bloom on a salt cellar lid today. I've shown how to do a flip cup. This is just another technique that you can do on them. We're going to do kind of a transfer with the bloom though. My colors that I want to use are kind of blues and purples, and I decided I wanted to use Waterfall as one of my piggies, so I thought I'd kind of show you real quickly how I actually mix these guys up. So I bought these little square containers at the Dollar Tree. They're 4 to a pack. And I really love them for this particular style of painting and for holding all of my elements in regards to this style of painting. I have put labels on each one of my colors so that I know exactly what they are. The labels are waterproof, so when my containers get really gross, I can actually just wash them off and the label stays in place. And it keeps them pretty well sealed. I will say that if I'm using these all the time, they don't dry out. If I let them sit for a while, like several months without using them, then they will start to dry out. So, but as far as the seal on the containers, it's pretty darn good, especially for such an inexpensive container. So we're gonna mix up some of the Waterfall, and this is one of the Fluid Art Piggies. And I will put the link for pigments down in the description of the video, along with a link to the Shelly Art course. I would really highly recommend that you do the Shelly Art course, because you'll learn so much from that. There's also a Shelly Art Facebook group just for people that have taken the course, and it's also helpful too. All right, so I'm just going to take a fair amount of the pigment and put it in my container here. I would say maybe a couple of teaspoons, and I'm going to use my Josanya gloss varnish to activate it. So we're kind of looking for like a paste, if you will. When you're using the varnish with the piggies, it takes a little bit more to make it pasty because you're using a dry ingredient, versus if you're using a liquid paint, you're not going to have to use as much. So I'm just going to go ahead and mix this to get my little paste, and that activates the powder. I want to mix it until it's a nice consistency. I'm going to add just a little bit more. Just trying to get all the chunks of the powder out of it. It's a really pretty color. Let's see here. All right, so that looks pretty good. So I've got kind of a nice little paste there. And then I'm going to add my Bear base to it. And this is the Bear Dynasty Deep Base 3653. I do have to go get more base, and I'm not sure. I know a lot of them I know a lot of the bases have been discontinued, and this isn't even the one that we initially started out using for this technique. So I'm not sure that this one is still available, but this is an untinted base that I'm putting in here. And I don't measure anything. I kind of paint like I cook. I don't measure anything. So you're kind of just looking for consistency with this, not necessarily, it's not really super scientific when it comes to mixing these guys up. So let me mix this up in here. And this obviously is gonna lighten the color of it, but don't worry, it will darken back up when it dries. It'll be that beautiful color again. Okay, so getting this mixed up, and let me take a look and see here. So this one's still a little thick. I call it kind of chewy, if you will. That's my little name for it, is chewy when it's too thick. So you want it to flow. You don't want it to be too thin, but you want it to have some body to it. So kind of do 1, 2, sink as you're going around. 1, 2, sink. That looks pretty darn good. Okay. So as I've said before, when you're using opaque colors in this particular style, the opaque tends to thicken up over time. And I've got a little chunk there, so let's get rid of that right now. I'm not sure where that chunk came from. Generally don't have chunks in my base, but maybe it was in my base. It had to have been in my base. There wasn't anything else. Okay, so I'm gonna set this over to the side. That's one of our pigments that we're going to use. And I had trying to decide what I want to take out now, because I had it figured out, and then I felt like there was just way too much purple here. So maybe we will take out Enchantment. Okay, so I kind of wanted it more blues. I am just throwing a little bit of violet in there just to give it a little bit of depth, because I don't want everything blue, because I feel like, I don't know, sometimes I don't always do a great job of picking my colors, because I feel like, oh, I want blue, so I'm only going to use blue. But sometimes I think you miss the mark when you don't mix some other things in there with it. So I'm putting just a little bit of purple in there, and then I'm also using Sequins, which is an interference color, so I think that'll help along with it too. All right, so let's put my little lid here. Now, what I've done, I did load the video in the front of this so that you could see how I prepped them. I lightly sanded, the backs are all taped. I've got this little hardware piece protected. And how I'm going to do these today is I'm going to start out on a palette knife, and then I'm going to transfer the bloom. I kind of want to see how that works. I feel like that's going to be like a good way to do this technique. We'll see. I don't know. It could or it could not work. We'll see. I'm going to use Anchors Away, Sherwin-Williams Anchors Away for my base. And I will probably add some of that base to the lid before we transfer, if I can get this open. This is one thing I didn't have open before I started. There we go. Okay, so let's put some of the Anchors Away on there for my base. This is definitely icky. I don't know that I've used this for a little while, so let me pull some of this out. Still good, but I've got some paint skin in here, so let me get rid of that real quick. I have blue fingernails. I can just see it now. I should be wearing gloves, but I thought I could do this without being messy. Ha ha, that's funny. All right, so I'm gonna put my little puddle of blue here. I don't think it's gonna take a lot, and I don't want too much so that it starts flowing off and being crazy. I kind of want my bloom to stay right here. We are going to use titanium white and a gray cell activator. So I've got those ready to go. Okay, so let's start with, what shall we start with? Let's do a little bit of the Soho Mineral Blue on top of here. It's not gonna take a lot because these are not very big. And then let's go to Sequins, which is the interference color. This has got a little bit of a purple to it. I'm gonna put this down here on the bottom. Okay, and then next we're going to use graphite gray, which is a paint, and it's got kind of a metallic to it. It is an opaque, so I don't want to get too crazy with this because you won't see any light through it. And then next, let's do the waterfall. Actually, let's leave waterfall for the top. Next, let's do this vinyasa. Vinyasa is this really beautiful, deep, moody blue. And we're going to put that on top. And then we're going to add just a little bit of prism violet. This is that little pop of purple I was talking about, which the sequins has a little bit of purple tint to it as well. I don't want to get too nuts with it because, as I said, I want my blue to be the focus. And then finally, let's put this beautiful waterfall right on top. Okay. What do you think, guys? I think it looks pretty good so far. All right. Now we're going to do our Payne's Gray and Tri-Art White cell activators. And I think I'm going to do, let's do the white first. So I'm going to put the white down and then we'll put the gray down. As soon as I put it down though, I'm going to hurry up and blow, okay? So here's the white. Again, I'm not going to take a ton because we don't have a ton of paint. And then the gray. Just a little dot. And then let's blow this out and see what we get. Just going to let that settle back down a second and then we're going to blow out. Trying to blow out to the edges of that paint. Oh, that's looking really good, guys. Can you see that? Look at those pretty, beautiful cells. I'm gonna blow out just a little bit here and there, and then in the middle. There we go. And a little bit in the middle. Okay, and then we're gonna put, look how cool that is. So the Tri-Art White gives us those big juicy cells that I absolutely love. And then let's put a little bit of the blue onto our salt cellar lid. And then let's see if we can get this little baby to transfer. I'm gonna move this around just a tiny bit because if this works the way I want it to, this should cover quite a bit of the area. Okay. Now I'm just gonna lay this down and let it flow off. As soon as the white comes on to the piece, then I'm going to start pulling across. There we go. Nice and slow. Because I want to stretch all the way across. Right now I'm about halfway. Going to tip this up a little bit more. You can see that I'm really stretching out, so I really want to make sure I get that down there. Right now I've got it resting right on the salt cellar lid, just to get as much paint off as I can, and onto the lid so that we can move it around a bit. And there we go. Okay. I'll set this over here for a moment. Okay. This looks really beautiful. This not so much, but that's all right. We're going to work with it. So let me lift this up so you can see. We're going to go off this side. And then let's go off on the top a bit. I've got plenty of paint on here, so I'm not concerned about the pieces that don't look great, because I have plenty of paint so that I can move it around and make it look fantastic. And then I'm just going to let it slowly creep down to the bottom there. You can see the gray cell activator along with the white. This is going to be a knockout, I think. So nice and slow, just letting it go down so we can get it all covered, and I'm not stretching my cells out too much. Taking my time because there's no sense in being in a hurry. Sometimes these small pieces are kind of a little bit more fun to work on than a big piece. You see the big cells that we have? Okay, going over on that one side, and then I'm just gonna let it drop down over this other edge. Stretching out those great cells. Okay, then I'm gonna kind of let it level back out. I might try to get rid of some of this, but while I have it over on this side, I'm definitely gonna see if I can't get some of this off of here. Because I do need to get my edge covered. It's not gonna take much to go over, I don't think. But my paint is still moving quite a bit, so I need to get rid of some more. So I'm gonna let it come back over now because I've got this edge over here covered. Just gonna go back down and see if we can't maybe move that a little bit more. My paint is still moving, so we're okay to keep getting rid of some more of it. Just trying to keep my cells like in their shape without stretching them out one way or another too far. And see if I can't go over on this edge a little bit. There we go. And then I'm just gonna pull it back a little bit and kind of center it to where I like it. And there we go. Okay. And then I'm going to touch up my sides just to make sure that everything is going to flow down. It should come down, but I want to make sure that it does. Because with this type of project, we definitely want to make sure the sides are pretty. And I want it to pull down and cover naturally if we can. So just going to turn this real quick, make sure I've got all my sides covered. Edges are looking good. She is so sparkly. All right, so there we go. Now, I'm kind of feeling like, let's do the same thing, but let's do it directly on and let's see what the difference is. What do you think? I think we should try that. Okay, so I'm gonna set this guy over here. I'm gonna pull my cup over and let's try this again and see if I can remember how I layered everything. Because that definitely changes things if you layer it differently. All right, so we're gonna start with our anchors away on top. And I wanna make sure I've got enough to go over the edges and cover, so I'm gonna put just a little bit more on there. Because remember, we had probably this much on the paddle and then we added a little bit more to it. So I don't want so much that we lose everything, but I definitely wanna make sure it's covered. Okay, and we started with, what did we start with, guys? Soho Mineral Blue, right? Started with our dark blue. So we'll start with some dark blue on there. All right, so there's our colors. We're gonna do Tri Art White first. And then we're gonna do our gray on top of that. And then I'm gonna blow it out. So I'm gonna blow down and up and then out to the sides. Here we go. Okay. I'm gonna let that settle just a tiny bit because that Tri Art White is kind of thick. Sorry for the interruption. My neighbor is cutting down a tree and the boys are in the studio with me. And it just made a pretty loud boom. And it made a pretty loud boom because he just took out part of our fence. Fantastic. All right, guys. We're just gonna keep going. All right, so here's our cells. And we're just gonna kind of tip this around and get rid of our extra paint. It's not really conducive to having my dogs out in our yard when you just took down a panel of our fence. I had a feeling when he was cutting that tree down, something like that might happen. I was hoping I was wrong. All right, just gonna go ahead and tip this. The center of it's not moving very much just yet, so I need to be careful that I don't mess my cells all up. So I'm gonna go ahead and tip off the front, or the top of it here. That's looking pretty good. Now let's see if we can make it move down towards the bottom. Just slowly moving my composition back kind of towards the center so that it has a really pretty middle to it. There we go. All right. I don't know which one I like better. I thought the other one was a little bit, I don't know, guys. I kind of like both of them, I guess. I thought it'd be a lot different with the, to do it directly onto the lid, but I feel like our other cells are juicier or bigger on the first one that we did. Let me touch this up really quick, and then I'm gonna move the other one over and show you both of them side by side. There we go.